about Venezuela for anyone who self-identifies as a northern feminist is that the most radical activists don't necessarily identify themselves as feminists. And this is why I say I'm in a bit of a battle with my graduate students, that she wants to retain a focus on the feminist movements, but not call it as such. And I keep saying to her, okay, well, maybe it's not called feminist and it's not depicted in those terms, but when you have the basic functions of social reproduction provided as public goods by the state, public goods such as education, public goods such as healthcare, public goods such as housing, because of course, especially in some lower income neighborhoods, the majority of households can be female headed because the guys take off and leave the woman with 3 kids. When you are being taken care of by the state and you are the recipient of decommodified services, for me that is way more important than a so-called labeled feminist project where you're getting legal forms of equality. Because that will do far more for advancing gendered forms of equality. And it was actually Engels who observed that we will never have equality unless men start having babies, which would be really awesome. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. But we will always be unequal as long as women are responsible for childbearing. Because the basic fact of having breasts and a uterus ties your body up for a number of months to do that work, right? So once you have decommodified services, healthcare, education, housing, food, even to some extent, you have actually increased the realm of control that people have over their own lives to decide how they use their time. And it doesn't have to be working for some lousy boss. So for me, that is an immensely feminist project. And this is one of the major innovations of the Bolivarian experience is in this realm. And it has led and will lead to greater forms of gender equality than exist in other countries in Latin America. So.
I'm not sure I understand that exactly. So having these human services enables the women to do whatever, more or less whatever they want to do with their time. They can use it to organize their neighbors. They can.
That's what we're doing.
Okay.
They're doing most of that work.
Okay, I see. All right.
In fact, our work in the water sector has indicated that it's primarily women who are doing the organizing at the barrio level. And you go to a meeting of a comuna, which is a commune, which is the organic structure of a neighborhood council. And when I've been to only a few of these meetings, I have observed maybe 10 or 20% men. The rest are women. Which also means that there's a triple burden, right? Because the feminist movement has often talked about the double burden. The fact that we are responsible for wage labor, then we're also responsible for coming home and cleaning the commune, right? This has been a very legitimate complaint to feminists during all of the experiments with left organizing in North America. And in Latin America now, in Venezuela, then, okay, you have to go do the wage labor job, then you have to go take care of your kids, and then you have to go organize a community. So you have 3 jobs instead of one. Instead of a dude just has 1 job. And then he can go home and kick back and drink a beer and watch football, right? So that's still a huge reality in Venezuela, but again, because women are relieved of some of the burden of having to do the bullshit wage labor jobs to get the other things for their families and themselves, then it affords them way more options in their lives.
Earlier you briefly touched on, how there's community organizations like the one we're in, and people are organizing around making their uniforms and shoes and stuff like that. Can you just talk more about that and what's coming out of that, I guess?
Yeah. There's a great interview with a woman called Rosangela Orozco. And her interview is also coming out in a book that was coming, I can't remember the press. but the title of the book is When the Rulers Obey. And she's from one of the commune structures. It is one of the most advanced in Caracas. It's from the western or poor part of Caracas, I think. And so they have actually been coming up with, so what happens is that through an organic democratic process, the people who are involved in the community activism have meetings of the council, of the neighborhood councils, and these are elected positions, where they have come up with a list of priorities and a list of economic development projects for their own community to produce what they need in their community, but also things that could potentially service other communes. And so it's a method of trying to come up with democratic ways of deciding and producing for human use values, number one. But we also have to recognize the fact that Venezuela is still a capitalist market, and so they are still producing also for exchange. But not that I don't know much about their comuna. It's called, oh gosh, it's called the Beehive in English. I can't remember the Spanish translation, but it's one of the most advanced ones. So I would recommend, if you want to learn more about that, to read the interview with Rosangela. If you Google my name, Jeff's name, and Rosangela, which is R-O-S, like Rosangela, basically, you'll find it. So, hope that answers your question. All right, guys, I'm going to have to go soon because my dinner is going to be ready. One more question, if that's okay.
I know that the Chavez regime has basically refused privatization of their oil, and
Yes.
so there's a socialist regime in power. What services do they offer to the people as far as food, plumbing, as opposed to the capitalist system?
Yeah. So I'm just going to talk about food because all of the basic public services in Venezuela have now been nationalized, so they're provided by state-owned utilities, such as water and sanitation, electricity, etc. But I think food is one of the most interesting ones because, again, I think food sovereignty is one of the most exciting things, at least in the Ottawa community. That's one of the coolest things that's going on. And so food is important because of this problem, the fact that they're an oil state, which means that they have to import the majority of their food, or at least have had to import the majority of their food. Because the problem with an oil state is that you can just sow the oil, so there's no incentive for anybody to diversify the economy or to produce food because you can just buy food on the international market with oil money. So this has been a historic problem in Venezuela. It's still a problem. So what they're trying to do is to, number one, purchase in bulk basic staples. And so this is something that benefits both the people in western and eastern Caracas. So that means the people who are in the poor barrios and the people that are in the wealthy neighborhoods that are currently under blockade because they blockaded themselves. Every week, the state comes to your neighborhood with subsidized goods to sell. And it's organized by community activists, such as people who would do Food Not Bombs. They'd be involved in this project instead. And so it's selling people pasta, rice, oil, basic foodstuffs for the Venezuelan diet at a very subsidized price because they're buying these things in bulk and therefore forcing the distributor to sell at a bulk price. And so both the left and the right are benefiting from this decommodification or partial decommodification, which means removal from the market, or at least removal from the market price, distribution of this basic foodstuffs. And so these staples are really an important part of the Venezuelan diet and an important part of the legitimacy of the government, because when you're getting, and food is incredibly expensive in Venezuela, it's super expensive, and so this has been one of the major benefits that people have seen in their lives. All right, guys, I'm getting, someone's coming upstairs to get me, so I'm going to have to go.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, bye. Have fun. Enjoy the next speaker. Bye, guys.
Are we going to take a 15-minute break? Is that what it was?
Yeah, we're going to go for 15. There's some snacks in the upper room and coffee, thanks to Jen and Mark. And then Jordan should be here shortly.
All right, everybody, we'll be back in about 15 minutes. And I know, Harris, you're watching, so
Do you have the time?
Oh, sorry.
say hi to Harris.
Hi. Ah!
Yeah, exactly.
Tell him to comment.
Yeah. So we'll be right back.